This time, Yerushalmi Eruvin in the article Oz v'Hada edition, where Mamish at the top of New Zayin Ralph Machlif Shitas Rabbi Yehuda, which in the Vilna is 3 lines to the bottom of Nun Gimel Amralf. So Rabbi Yehuda Mishnah said that a bor between two chatzeros, you do have to have a wall on the surface of the bor. So on that, Gemara asks a question. Machlif Shitas Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda seems to contradict himself. Taman Amar Rabbi Yehuda in Maseches Beitza, Rabbi Yehuda says that. He says that water doesn't have, if you contribute water to a dough, it doesn't determine the tchum of the dough because water has no significance. There it says he didn't put the mamish. He says that water doesn't have any significance. So here, the fact that water sloshes from side to side, why is that a problem? Why do I need any mechitza whatsoever? It says you need a wall. Even on top of the bor, you should need a wall. So in the Gemara, according to Chaim, according to Mechal HaMayim, the Gemara doesn't answer this question, leaves it difficult, and goes on to another thing. According to some of the Forshim, the particular name Moshe, the Gemara Amar Avuna is an answer. But it seems like Ravuna is a separate thing. According to Beis Hillel, who says that the wall has to be on top, it has to still be somewhat extended into the cavity of the bore. Okay, so maybe it says it can be completely on top of the bore, like this. And Beis Hillel says it has to be extended at least somewhat. I think this is maybe exaggerated, obviously, but that it has to be extended somewhat into the cavity of the bore. Okay. Halacha Zayin. Amma Samayim she overs b'chotzer. If you have a irrigation ditch, obviously not irrigation, it's a ditch which has water going through it, which goes through chotzer. Shabbos, you can't draw water out of it on Shabbos, and can also unless you make a wall over the ditch on 10 tefachim, where it comes into the chotzer, where it leaves the chotzer. I mean, it said Maisa ba'ama shows avol. There was a story of the Amma in Avol, the ditch in Avol, Shabbos, they would use it based on the psak of the elders on Shabbos, even though it had no walls. It didn't have a shear, so the Korban says, explain Shlo Kashir Karmelis, Omek Asara Brochavar Bosh, Enamin Nasim Shus Atzman, She Karmelis, and can Onkon Asara Vrachvan Arba. So in other words, in order to have this wall is only necessary if the water in the Amma is Cholik Rishus Latzmo, it's his own independent Rishus. And therefore, it wasn't either 10 tefach deep and 4 tefachim wide. Didn't meet one of those two criteria. So therefore, that Amma specifically did not need a wall. But an Amma, which is 10 tefachim deep, and 4 tefachim wide, that one, in order to fill from an Shabbos, need to have a wall b'knisa uvi yitzia. And the Gemara specifies this. Masnisa are the armish to the case amoka asar bracha barba. See, 10 tefachim deep and 4 tefachim wide. It's open on both sides of the yard. Nivutzim luchachav is only open on one side of the yard. So it's similar to the halacha of a mavi. Nice and lechi b'kora mikan. You put a lechi b'kora on the side where it exits the yard. Nivutzim mikan. It's open on both sides. So then, nosin lechi v'kora mikan, but it's tzeres and pesach mikan. Put a lechi and kora on one side, or a kora on one side, and tzeres pesach on the other side. Now, a couple of things here. First of all, the Gilin Ashah says, from here, mevur the tzeres pesach mo b'mayim. You see, which issue which is discussed in the later poskim, where the tzeres pesach can work over water. Call this or Eruvin Odessa had a tzuras pesach going over the water, and there's a tshuva, I think a Divri Malkiel about it. So this is there was a whole discussion. You see here from the Yerushalmi that tzuras pesach works over water. But amen. The question is, of course, our Mishnah say you need mechitza mikan, and here is saying that it's enough to have a tzuras pesach mikan lechem mikan. So it could be that the simple pshat of the Gemara is that our Gemara is also about a chotzer. And saying that, well, you don't need a mechitza mamish like our Mishnah. Well, it's best and lechi can suffice. But the Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky wants to say that no, our Mishnah is talking about a chotzer. The Gemara is talking about an amma going through a mavui, and therefore the tikkun is very similar to that of a mavui, right? Either lechi v'kor one mitzad echad or Tzuras Pesach on one side, lechi v'kor on the other side, which is also a little bit difficult because. Why should a chutzner require such a more stringent tikkun than the mavi that a chutzner requires mechitzas mamish, and say to pasin certainly Tzuras Pesach should work. So to me, it seems that the Gemara is talking about an alternative to our Mishnah. Mishnah said you need two walls, and the Gemara is not necessarily about a mavi, which is really chosim in a sefer, because it's saying anything explicitly about it being a mavli, but it's giving an alternative to our Mishnah saying that Tzuras Pesach or can work as, or lechi korah can work as well, and mechitzas are in our Mishnah lav dafka. So next one is a little bit difficult. Going to go through Chaim Pshat. The Gemara asks, "Lo yinsu shtei rishuyos mishtamshus b'rishus achas." The Amma and Avol. Right, it probably at houses on both sides of the Amma, right? So how these houses, and probably they make an Eruv with each other, because on two sides of an Amma, which is a ditch, which is 10 tefachim deep and 4 tefachim wide, and therefore there's a charitz between the two chatzeros. So aren't the two rishuyos, the house is on one side of the Amma, and the house on the other side of the Amma, which should have an Eruv with each other, both using the ditch? And do we not have the problem previous Mishnah of we have two rishuyos mishtamsel shus achas, more even obviously because there are multiple houses on each side. So how could they all use this rishus in the middle without a wall in the Amma to divide one side from the other? So let's say all the houses were on one side and they all made an Eruv with each other. So there wasn't shtei rishuyos mishtamshus shus achas because they were all on one side. They made an Eruv on that side of the ditch, and therefore everything was fine. They didn't have to have walls dividing one half of the ditch from the other. One side of the ditch on the other side of the ditch. There were no houses. Okay, now the Gemara asks. So she does a milsa. Thus it's pashut. If it's 10 tefachim deep, but not 4 tefachim wide, then mutar talta mutar. You're allowed to carry from across the charitz, and you're allowed also to fill up from the charitz. It's not a problem. There's no issue. And when Reb Chaim explains it, there's no issue marasayin because it's too narrow. Nobody's going to think it's big as shushin up to itself. What if it's 4 tefachim wide? Even it's not 10 tefachim deep. So pshita shmuta talta. Okay, I can carry across from one side to the other. Malos. But what about filling up from the ditch? It seems that there's a maras ein issue. It looks like you're carrying from a carmelist, even though it's not a separate shus because it's not 10 fucking deep. But it looks like you're carrying from filling up from a carmelist into your to the water and onto the sides of the ditch. So again, for some reason, the taltel they weren't choshesh. They weren't concerned that it looked like the maras ein issue. But here it seems like they were taking a karmelis. It's not actually a karmelis because it's surrounded by Rishus HaYachid. It's part so Rishus HaYachid in Rishus HaYachid. At worst, it's not even that because it's not a separate Rishus. So it's all really Rishus HaYachid, but it looks like a karmelis. So therefore, how do we allow you to fill up from the ditch to the sides? So in fact, it's a machlokes. Rabbi Amar mutar. Rabbi says okay. Rabbi Amar also. And when it says it's also to fill up from the ditch to the sides. Masisa Pliga Rabbi Mona. Our mission sees Rabbi Mona because it seems that there was no restriction as long as it wasn't this year. They was allowed to fill up from the ditch. As it says, they didn't have a shear. So it seems that a shear, it's not a problem. So Rabbi answers, no, that was different. Our mission is about where it's lacking both shiurim. It wasn't 10 tefachim deep nor 4 tefachim wide. But if it's 4 tefachim deep, even if it's not that 4 tefachim wide, even not 10 tefachim deep, there's a maras ein issue, and you will not be able to fill up from it on Shabbos. Avol im here the Bnei Moshe and everybody else really puts in lo heisa mukasara. If it was what not 10 tvachim deep, and they take out the ve'ena heave and they change it to vehi rechavar ba. It said 4 tvachim wide. Also, right? And it's also because of the Marasayan issue. The Gemara seems to understand that this is a good diuk in the Mishnah also. It's not just an answer Rabbi Mona gives. So it's a good diuk in the Mishnah. There was a question of Rabbi Chanina. Okay, because according to Rabbi Chanina, I could say it was a mutter, right? The inference of Mishnah is that if you have one of the shurim, then it's 4 tvachim wide. Even if it's not 10 tvachim deep, it's still usher. I don't see exactly how the inference in the Mishnah, but that is the that's Gemara is assuming, and that's Gemara has to answer that madhava uvda hava uvda, right? So actually, I skip here. I skip it. Says Gemara, yeah, no. No, even if it's 4 tvachim wide, then it's not 10 tvachim deep. As long as it's not 10 deep, it's permissible. That's a Bechina's answer. Our Mishnah, which was again, the Gemara understand at this point it was lacking both shurim, wasn't 10 tvachim deep nor 4 tvachim wide. That happened to be the case over there. But as the Korban says, but really, in economy, in our Mishnah, it was not. It was lacking both dimensions. But as long as it's lacking one dimension, that too says a bechina is mutter. It doesn't have to be lacking actually in both dimensions. So again, somehow the Gemara understands that when some elimination kashir, that means that both dimensions are lacking, both the 4 tvachim and 10 tvachim, 4 tvachim wide and 10 tvachim deep. It says loud tafka. As long as it's missing one dimension, that's sufficient. I see the article has a different egos of the girsa as it is in the Gemara. It doesn't change the girsa. He says a note that forshim he's kashu beferish ketazeh. But in any event, we went to Carbon Ada, Bnei Moshe, and it was fine. Okay, lochaches. Lochaches ketzutzra. Ketzutzra is. Nice pictures in the article here. Ketzutzra is a balcony which has a hole in it, so you can get water from a river going beneath the hole. That river that was a Carmelis, right? So Ketzutzra malim min hayam. It's not a river; it's a lake. A malim mena b'Shabbos. Yam here, it can mean sea, it can mean lake, whatever, a body of water. Ein malim mena b'Shabbos can't full from Shabbos and can also mechitza gavasa unless you made a mechitza 10 tvachim high. Mechitza gavasa tvachim. Bein milamal and bein milamato. Now in the Bavli, Rashi interprets the malo lamata means above the balcony or below the balcony, but from the Yerushalmi in the sugya, it's going to be clear that above means right next to the balcony and below means right next to the water. That's what we'll see when we get to the Gemara. But and so v'chein shtei ketzutzros. So you have 2 ketzutzros, zulu malam mizu, one on top of the other, and in the Bavli they're not one on top of the other. They're next to each other. There might be a picture here somewhere. Yeah, over here. Okay, they're next to each other. One above, one below. Adjacent to each other. But the Yerushalmi is clear that we're talking about where one is above the other directly, like this picture over here. So you have 2 ketzutzros and they're both using the same hole. It's supposed to adjacent to each other. Like in the Bavli, they're both using the same hole. Also, you have they made for the top one the wall, not for the bottom one. Shtein HaSuros, they're both Aser, Ad She'arivu, until they make an Eruv. And we're not addressing where the bottom one needs a wall at the moment, but since they're both using the same hole, they have to have an Eruv between the two of them. Okay, so now we're talking about where you made the wall down near the water level. So Rabbi Zira Shem said, it's like we had previously that the wall has to be sunk into the water, the shear of the bucket, which means 4 tefachim into the water. Right, so the bucket would theoretically stay inside the sutra, inside the confines of the wall. Okay, so now they're going to ask a question. And lots of enforcement have difficulty with this question, and the article just takes it out. Based on the Chaim, just takes it out. Takes it out. Okay, but which could be because we had to write several times already. Maybe this time we just got there by mistake. But if we are, I don't see any problem with the Girsa. I think about questions like this. The Gemara didn't specify how close the sutra has the wall has to be to the balcony. And you can say just bein milamala, bein milamatan. So now you can imagine to yourself, you have this river flowing along this lake over there, and you have all these multiple balconies along it, and they have random walls along the side, and they're all using this yam. So yeah, how does this work? Right? They didn't make Eruvin. They have random walls. What does that do? Some are a little bit high, some a little bit lower. Just it seems like bedlam and pandemonium. Everybody they didn't make an Eruvin. They're all using this rishus. So Mar says, you're right. It has to be that each one has a wall samach to the chasutra. It doesn't work to have it just dangling randomly somewhere between your balcony and the surface of the water. It can be down below, as stretching 4 tefachim to the water, but that's pretty big chumrah. It can be up above, but it can't just be random. It has to be within 3 tefachim of the opening. Love it of the opening. So then everybody looks like they have a separate rishus. It's not a rishus. Each one has a rishus by virtue of their having a wall immediately below their mirpesas. I think it could be a pashut pshat gemara. I don't see a problem with that. Okay. So now Reichinim Akiva comes up with a revolutionary concept, which seems to contradict our Mishnah. If you have one of these contraptions above one of these balconies above the water, you remove the covering of this kasutra, which is covering evidently the floor, and you can dangle a bucket. So. What happened to the wall of our Mishnah? It just says that they Shashum and Mali, then go bang a bucket and fill it up. Rabbi Shem Rabbi Yad said, no, it's not so simple. V'ushiyesh nekev arba tefachim, the opening has that 4 tefachim. V'ushiyesh rochav arba, and has a width of 4. Okay, so the question what exactly that means. And it has to have walls which are 10 tefachim high. Okay, so what exactly does this mean? So the article again takes out a line here. It takes out the line Vushie barba, barba. So he just has as long as there is the neck of his 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim, right, and they also have walls around the balcony of 10 tefachim. So you have a Pesach, 4 by 4 tefachim, and you have walls around it, which are around the balcony, which are 10 by 10 tefachim. But most unfortunately, I think, learn like the Korban Aida, that it's about something similar to the Bavli. And the 10 tefachim doesn't mean that they're actual walls of 10 tefachim. Rather, if you have 4 by 4 amos, this picture also in the article, but I like this picture. It was simply a bit more clear. If the balcony is 4 by 4 amos, which means it's 24 amos, 24 tefachim across this way, 6 by times 4, and 24 tefachim this way, and you made a 4 by 4 tefach hole in the middle. So now there's 10 tefachim on each side of that hole, right? Because it's 24 by 24 minus 4 by 4, it's 10 by 10 on each side. So therefore, it's as if you have 10 tefachim of wall going down. So that let's see in the Bavli. So therefore, according, it's okay because that not the hushi mechitzas kavos asara. Not that you have to have the mechitzas kavasaras necessarily, but it's as if the walls are 10 tefachim high. Now, that's one way of learning it, but the other way of learning it is that Fushim mechitzas kavasaras is a separate statement altogether. So therefore, the way that the Korban says it, Rabbi Yaakov b'shem Rabbi Yasa Lushesh Onekav Arba Toim Bartoim Lushesh V'Ochav Arba. Period. Okay, and our Mishnah would say, but they're actual mechitzas for who she mechitzas k'vosasara. I think that the pshat is that the pshat probably is better. Soup pshat in carbonata. So okay, but name it. So this is the if it's 4x4, this is the idea why it's effective. Okay. And I think that brings us about on the Amud for today. No. Oh, yeah. Talmud Army is a new thing. Okay, so we'll stop here. It's already on the top of the next Amud. Okay, short day for Eruvin. We'll stop here.